Alright everyone, we've got some clickbait here from the Daily Beast. This is more of a humorous thing because this is the sort of stuff that gets like strewn around by the legacy media. The missing link media, like a Daily Beast or a Salon or like a Blaze, they're much more guilty of it than the cable news sort of old guard true legacy media. The legacy media is just boring and they lie and propagandize, but they don't put out quite as much of the clickbait except with regards to Trump or anything related to people around Trump. With them, it's full tabloid mode when it turns to Trump. Anything else, they at least try to be respectable, aka boring. The missing link media usually tries to do the opposite. They try to be anti-boring and just clickbait all day, and they're basically tabloids. So this latest news from the Daily Beast, it was shocking when I read it, really. Now, apparently the alt-right, which, I think they put out articles not long ago saying it was basically dead. It's no longer dead. It's invading Renaissance fairs in order to proselytize to your children. Yeah, that's really what the Daily Beast thinks. So the far right, the bigots, they took up their chainmail. They lost the fashy haircuts, and now they've got grizzly beards and cod pieces, and they're firing bows and arrows. They left behind sort of the skin mentality, the meth farm with, your illegal machine gun. They left that behind, and now they've adopted the Varg method. And I was thinking to myself, this sounds a lot like tales from the 80s and 90s. I can remember as a kid you'd hear a little bit about this. It petered out towards the end of the 90s, thankfully, because it was really dumb. Remember the idea of drug pushers? For those of you old enough to remember, the concept was you'd get free drugs from some friendly-sounding individual. Somebody would approach you on the street and say, hey, come over here, kid, I got something for you. Hey, you seem like a cool kid. Try some of this. It's really good. Makes the colors go or whatever. And the kid tries it, and they're like, wow, I got free drugs. And then pretty soon, because they've got free drugs, they get addicted, and then they go back, and they're like, hey, can I get some more? Yeah, but if you want to fly, you got to buy. And so now they're an addict. They pimp themselves out or whatever. And they invariably depicted like the Leave It to Beaver style kids being targeted. You had the shifty kid who was cool and he was listening to Ice-T or something like that. That the cool kid gave him marijuana and now they're strung out on heroin. And so this former very straight-laced kid, obviously virginal, obviously straight A's, loves America and apple pie and grandma on the rocking chair and stuff. Now he's just wasted. He's just wasted all the time. And it never actually happened. Like there was a common joke. I think Leary made a joke about this once. About the concept that everyone was told that they could get free drugs and like no one ever offered it to them, and now they're upset because the drugs were actually fun. But the Daily Beast thinks that something akin to that is going to happen if you go to the LARPy Renaissance Fair. You're not just getting beer and chainmail and haggis and other weird shit and reproduction swords that are actually made out of shitty stainless steel and have rat tail tags and they're no good and they won't work and they're wall hangers, which is what you'll typically get, unfortunately. It's not actually being hand forged. It's not actually battle ready. If it is, then you're going to pay an arm and a leg. No, you're also getting indoctrinated by Nazis if you do that. It's inherent. You've got a traditionalist style atmosphere, very, very Eurocentric, these Renaissance fairs. It's like, I'm thinking, I went to like the Plymouth Bay colony ones. And it's sort of similar. They have people who dress up in antiquated garb and they'll talk to you in Old English. Very hard to get them to break character. It's sort of like people try to wheedle them into doing so, the same way they do the Queen's Guards over at Buckingham. And it's a big mistake, by the way, to push them too far if you don't want a gun aimed right at you. But yeah, they dress up and they have their little gardens and stuff. The Plymouth Bay colony, apparently it's set up almost exactly, log for log, the same way that it was initially. Because the plans were taken down in detail, it was easy for them to restore it. So you have sort of the native village, and then you have the fort in front with the cannons and stuff. It's pretty imposing and cool. And then you have sort of this little village with the backyard gardens. They're all raised like New England sides. It's actually very scenic. A lot of flowers, a lot of vegetables, a lot of cool shit there. You should definitely, if you can, go to the Plymouth Bay colony. I highly recommend it. It was very informative and very entertaining. But I never saw those Nazis lurking in the shadows. I guess this was too long ago. Now that I'm an old man and shit, like back when I was a kid, we're talking, I think it was like 2000 or something that I went there. Back then there weren't armies of right-wingers. See, the thing is this. Here's the thing. It's not just the left that makes this mistake. People on the right do too. When people on the right are like, well, you're going to have to choose a side, fence sitter, because armies of communists and anarchists are coming. I'm like, yeah. Oh, you mean that 1% of the population that's actually technically alt-left? What the fuck? They're all disarmed. They're not going to do shit. They don't pose any threat to the Republic, and they don't pose any threat to me. Libertarians outnumber them 100 to 1, probably. I'm not worried about the alt-left. Any more than when I see something like this, I'm going to worry about, well, there's armies of mystical, occult-practicing, Kek-worshipping, Varg-loving Nazis at the Renaissance Fair. It's not true. It's just propaganda. See, here's the problem. The left, specifically, when we're talking about their articles, Salon, the Daily Beast, Vox, and stuff, HuffPo, these tabloid movements, they can't explain why their political persuasion lost in 2016. So instead of chalking it up to what it really was, they're boring and the people running against them were populists that said, hey, we actually give a damn about the flyover states and about the working class. Instead of chalking it up to the weakness of liberality, which it has become, they invented a secret, mysterious army of people who are high-strung bigots, and they're probably going to become violent, and they're trying to take over the world. We've got to suppress them on every front. It bodes well, by the way, for groups like the Daily Beast or Vox. Bodes well because in making these stories, they say, well, they must be censored. You know, these people are violent. We need to kick them offline. That's funny, because most of the people targeted are not extremists. They're simply competitors of the Daily Beast and Vox and HuffPo and groups like that. Funny how that works. Always seems to happen. I wonder why. Now, you need to look deeper than the claims on the surface. Really, it all boils down to money, like the clickbait. This will get them a lot of advertising money. When they put out a story like this, it will tend to outperform. It's just like with Right Wing Watch. One of the biggest stories they've ever put up, like on their YouTube, one of the videos that got watched the most was when they were antagonizing a bunch of larger YouTubers, myself included. So they called me like a Nazi gatekeeper, and they called Blonde like, you know, she's an identitarian, and Sargon's a gatekeeper in Malnu, and you know, I mean, it was totally off the wall. It's insane. But it got them a lot of attention, and once they realized, hey, we can double the number of people that look at our shit, therefore, we can double the potential revenue, or at the very least, our ranking goes up. Put this on the website. This post does 10 times more than all of the other posts combined that week. Hey, we need to do that again. And so it gives disproportionate weight to the clickbait. And this is how the legacy media and the missing link media, by the way, destroy themselves. Eventually, because they're part of that shrinking pond, they're going to focus on the clickbait, cannibalize one another, and pretty soon that pond will have shrunk too far. They'll eventually lose power so quickly they won't be able to branch out into what I believe will be the rise of the next wave of tech. They won't have the capability. Some of them will die off as companies. You know, a group like the Daily Beast, if you're already hooked on the tabloid stuff, it's going to be more difficult than if you have some degree of journalistic integrity. If you're just a total partisan, hey, preach to your echo chamber all you want, they'll always exist, but they're going to find other mediums to get preached to on. And you're part of the old guard, you're part of the missing link media, will become a problem. No, there is no extremist uprising in the Renaissance fairs. That's obviously wrong. This is just social panic. It's the same sort of shit you saw, like, you know, secret Satanists are going to try to get into your school and they're going to teach your kid how to worship the devil through Iron Maiden albums. It's the same claim. It's just been recycled over and over again. Reds under the bed, Satanists, drug pushers. It's the same shit. It always will be. That's about all. Peace out.